podcast. So we're going to fly by the seat of our pants in this one. And to help me along, it's somebody that I have luckily co-hosted with before. It's Mr. Michael Bowers. How are you doing?
Not doing too badly. But I said to you off camera, apologies in advance of me timekeeping because I said a certain time and then kept getting pushed back. But we're here. I'm all right. If we take Sunderland out of it, which we're probably going to bring up old wounds, to be honest, then I'm not doing too badly. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Is there anything but old wounds when it comes to Sunderland?
Probably not.
Yeah. Right. So, we'll get straight into it. It's the 18th today as we're recording this, and yesterday was Birmingham 2, Sunderland 1. Were you at the game, Michael?
No, I was watching it, but I didn't see. I wasn't at the game. I was at Huddersfield. Yay! But I think the best thing about yesterday was the fact that it didn't go down.
Yeah. Well, I was doing the live commentary on the Fan TV, and it started really positive. Obviously, we went one goal up. But soon just went completely flat and the subs are atrocious. Can I just get your input, your take on the game in general?
Right. Without trying to bore people for 10 minutes. First half, I thought we were all right. I didn't think we were great, but I thought we showed a bit more desire than I thought we did at Huddersfield. And when I say desire, people seem to think that I'm implying that the players don't try. And for me, I think the players obviously do try to an extent, but I think they put the bare minimum amount of effort in rather than giving 100%.
Yeah.
And for me, that was the case at Huddersfield. So I think as a result of that, I think yesterday, first half, we were all right. We wanted it a little bit more. We pressed Birmingham and, the goal wasn't exactly pressing, but I think we actually were able to cause Birmingham a couple of problems. Obviously, Jack Clark pounces on a loose ball, basically from Ethan Laird, I think it is, their right back.
Yeah.
And obviously it was a good finish. I think it's his 15th goal of the season now, last time I checked. So that's obviously good for his price tag in the summer, which is very exciting. But, we'll get onto that later, I'm sure. Half-time, just about deserved it maybe, but I didn't think we were great. And then second half, I think it's a weird one because I think second half, it went similar to what Huddersfield did, where I felt like we were second to the ball. We were not winning the first or second balls. And to me, that's down to desire. That's down to wanting to win it. And look, I understand the argument that these lads are inexperienced, or majority of them are, but when you actually look at it, Ballard, this is his third straight season at this level. Dan Neal's played over 100 games for us now. Luke O'Nine's 29 years old. Jack Clark's had plenty of experience in the Championship. So it's not exactly like a team full of totally inexperienced bands. Trey Hume's now been a regular in the team for the last year or so now.
Yeah.
So really, for me, that doesn't wash anymore. It's an experience for me. And you shouldn't have to be 23 years up or above to know to win a second ball and to know when to match the opposite work rate.
And if you watch any of the games for the under-21s, they seem to have a better work ethic. So it's nothing to do with the age, because them lads look at Rig coming through. So I'm with you. I don't think the excuse washes anymore. What did you think, Mundell? That he got his first start yesterday. What was your ratings on him? Because I think he looks like quite amazing, to be honest, for his first time out.
I think obviously he's raw in the final third, but you expect that. But I think he was very good. I thought he was probably our best player. If you had to nail me down a player who I thought looked the best for Sunderland, maybe apart from the likes of Dan Neal, who I thought, again, continues to have good games actually on his own. But I thought Mundell would look really, really promising. And look, it's kind of evident that Mundell, look, when Jack Clark goes in the summer, because let's face it, we're probably not getting promoted. In fact, we're definitely not getting promoted for me. So Clark is then gone. So does that mean that Mundell is going to be playing now to get some games up to speed to then be replacing Clark in the summer? But as far as Mundell's first couple of impressions go, definitely got something about him. Definitely like the look of him.
Yeah, obviously he came through like the academy with the Tottenham academy where Jack Clark came from as well, I believe. So there's got something about him. With how he played and the energy levels he still had at 70 minutes in, why was he subbed off?
Because Michael Beale, that's why. that's
Excellent. I'm so glad you said that, because I can flow naturally onto my next title, which is the Beale Out Campaign. Now, Beale from the Birmingham game, from the last, obviously we had a couple of wins and people were starting to ease off this whole Beale Out campaign and it started to edge towards let's give him a chance. I'm on the fence. See what happens?
Yeah.
But he seems to take 2 steps forward and 10 steps back because his subs, I just cannot understand it. What's his tactical knowledge at all? Where do you stand with Beale?
I'm someone who doesn't like hounding head coaches out, and it takes quite a while for me to get to that point. But I think Beale, I'm not gonna lie, the whole home game was when I turned and I said that I think Beale needed to go. And the only other manager or head coach that I've turned on fairly quickly was Phil Parkinson. Not because I dislike Phil Parkinson, but obviously I think because at the time it's not quite as crap a situation as that because we weren't in the bottom half of League One. But with Beale, and to be fair, I've got a friend of mine who is a big Sunderland fan but watches a lot of Rangers and obviously watched a lot of Rangers under Michael Beale. We know one of the lads called Graham Falk at What the Falk, who was a very good podcast in my opinion, and probably one of the best ones easily out there for SAFC. And he lives in Glasgow and covered Rangers under Michael Beale. And a lot of things that we heard when Beale was appointed did concern me a bit, and it wasn't like anything it wasn't a glowing reference, put it that way. I've heard a lot of things. One of the phrases my mate used was create division in the dressing room and sort of, alienate players, I guess. So with that in mind, I always try to give someone a chance. But it became apparent from as early as the whole home game, when Fabio Carvalho scored, typically a player I wanted us to sign, but never mind.
Same.
He scored against us. And from that point, I was Beale out. And even through the couple of wins we've had, I still felt that it didn't change the bigger picture. Although, to be fair, I think it is important to remember. So to answer your question, in a long way after I've waffled for about 5 minutes, I am Beale out. I do think he needs to go. But I think it is important to remember that there's a fine line between criticising him and saying that he needs to go and personally abusing him and with what's happening in his personal life. Because you can, for me as a fan, even as a fan and passionate fans as we are, you should be able to separate those two things and look at them individually. So as a human being, I've got nothing against him. As a human being, with what's happened with his niece Poppy, we hope I'm pretty safe to say we both hope she gets well, because that's obviously more important than football any day of the week. But at the same time, Beale for me, there doesn't seem to be as cliched as it is, there doesn't seem to be a style of play. And if you want to look at the XG stats, which a lot of people do look at XG, we're worse by considerable fashion in terms of going forward than under Mowbray. And I'm someone who feels that we're not keeping enough clean sheets. And let's just say I was ranting and raving massively in the pub when Birmingham scored the 2 goals because I felt both of them were, well, to an extent a bit unlucky, but also really crap situations to concede in. So I felt like, again, if you're not going to, because the problem is, concede goals against, I don't think there's really that much difference between Beale and Mowbray. The problem is now that we're not creating the opportunities to then miss. At least with Mowbray, we were missing chances and still opening them up and taking without taking chances. But I'm not going to be revisionist because at the time I felt Mowbray going was the right call, and I still stand by that. I still think getting rid of Mowbray was the right decision, but getting rid of Beale was the wrong one.
Was he the right decision to get rid of Mowbray without somebody lined up, though?
Well, obviously on paper, no, it's not. But at the time, we didn't know that. So for me, look, if I got told at the time, Mowbray or Beale, you keep Mowbray. Any day of the week, you may as well keep Mowbray for the rest of the season. But for me, the whole point in getting rid of Mowbray, and people can say, I was about getting in a hissy fit over the transfer thing and the model and the way it works. Well, Mowbray knew that when he came in. Let's get real. He knew that when he came in. So he can't really then start throwing his toys out the pram when it comes to how we do things. But if you had told me at the time that Beale was his replacement, then I wouldn't have changed. At the end of the day, it's hindsight. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, but the idea of getting rid of Mowbray was meant to be an upgrade. And bearing in mind, that's a risky decision, isn't it? Because Mowbray was quite popular with a lot of supporters. A number of people I know really didn't want Mowbray to go. And I even get messages to this day of people, a couple of messages here and there going, shouldn't have got rid of Mowbray. And if it was a case of Mowbray or Beale, but to answer your question, back to it with Beale, nothing against him as a human being, and hopefully things look up well in his personal life, but for me, he needs to go.
Okay, quick choice, one or the other. The only way we can get rid of Beale is get this other manager. Would you have Beale or Parkinson?
Is that for the rest of the season or beyond that?
For the rest of the season, at least.
Parkinson.
Wow. Bold.
Only because I could, and yes, it was in League One, but I could see what Parkinson was trying to do. Can you tell me what Beale's trying to do?
earn enough money to walk away from football because he ain't getting another job after this, probably. Hence the ridiculous contract we offered him.
Sunderland squad, what is he trying to do?
I don't know.
You'd be hard pressed to find an answer, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would, but then you'll also get people that say that's not all him. And again, we stroll nicely on my next title.
I agree with that, mind. To an extent,
yeah, well, that scrolls onto this next one, which is the model. I've just said model because that's what we refer it to, but what we're speaking of, obviously, is KLD, Speakman, their philosophy on signing the young players, which I know you've been an advocate of in the past, but it's less about the signing the young players because I'm hands up. He found Jack Clark, and we got this Mundle and other players. We've got some great signings. He's done well in that front, but do you think the manager needs more say? Do you think we need a manager, not a head coach? Do you think this model is still working? Are you still an advocate of it?
I think for me, yes. I still think it is. I think it's more down to the fact that I know we've had this discussion about the manager and head coach thing before. I think that when it comes down to it, a lot of clubs are going down the head coach route these days, and you'd be hard-pressed to find the manager sort of thing is becoming less and less prevalent in modern football. Not saying it doesn't exist, because obviously it does, but it's not. I think head coach is becoming more popular than what some Sunderland fans would think. The model for me is, even I've said this before, I really like the model. I like what we're doing, and I'm a firm believer that eventually we will see the rewards from it. My judge, obviously, when it comes down to 100% on Beale, what I meant by that was that I think the players have got to take criticism and take criticism in their own performances. But this segment's not about the players, it's about the model. So when it comes down to the model itself, I think the model, put it this way, my main judgment of it, because I know a lot of people think that we don't spend money, and to me that's, sorry for swearing, I think that's a load of bollocks. Because if you actually look at the fees we paid this season, we have paid fees for players. Off the top of my head, Rustian, Job, Yelder, Mundle, there's a couple of the ones. I think Hamir and Miendo might pay a small fee for both of them. Yeah, you can say small fee, but we still paid fees for them. So this idea that we don't spend money for me is absolutely ludicrous. But where I judge it mainly is, say in the summer, right? I guess, do you agree with me that if we don't, well, like we're not going up. Jack Clark goes in the summer. Is that fair?
Yeah, if we don't go up, I mean, I've still got an ounce of faith that we could make the playoffs, but if we don't go up, yes, definitely.
Well, we know to make the playoffs, we're relying on pretty much winning every bloody home game at this point and trying to nick draws away from home, because away from home we do nothing. Yeah. But point is, Jack Clark goes in the summer, right? For me, a value of a minimum £25 million is what we should be getting. At minimum, by the way, I would like to be pushing for a bit more than that, but £25 million is fair. In that scenario, Tottenham are entitled to 25%, I believe, aren't they, of any future sale. Calculated, because I'm a saddo with maths, that is £6.25 million. So Sunderland, as a theory, then for Clark, would get roughly £18.5 million once the clause is paid for. My judgment of the model then becomes, what happens with the money you generate from sales? How much of that goes back into the squad? What do we do with it? How is that distributed across the club? So say you get roughly £18.5 million from the Clark deal after Tottenham's clause, right? I would expect at least £10 to £12 million at least to be reinvested directly back into the first team squad, because you've then got no excuse to not start to reinvest the money and to start going for it. And I don't mind the fact that we don't go out and splash money. And I think in general, people can say what they want about this season, but for me, when it comes to judging players that have had a regular amount of playing time, more of them have worked than haven't worked, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I would be keen to see what Speakman and Stuart Harvey is the scout, obviously he needs to give credit for this. What can they do then with a bit more money? What can they do with a bit more money? Now, if it gets to a scenario where we get that money in for Clark and we penny pinch again and we barely spend any of it, and a lot of it goes towards the club or whatever else it is, then I will criticize it, because I'm like, well, no, hang on a minute. Like, you're generating this money, so you shouldn't be anywhere near. I mean, we probably shouldn't be near FFP rules anyway, but you especially shouldn't be once a big sale starts coming in. Yeah. So if, say, for example, you get that money for Clark and you spend, trying to think of a play off the top of my head, which is quite tricky. Well, okay. Jay Stansfield or Tom Cannon, right? If you're looking at that, Jay Stansfield, I think, is a pretty bright player, pretty bright striker, knows how to score goals, right? If then we sell Clark and then you spend some of that on saying to Fulham, there's 5 to 8 million. Stansfield comes in permanently if he wants to. Or Leicester, if they get promoted. Can you see Tom Cannon playing for Leicester in the Premier League? At the minute, I can't.
Yeah.
So test the waters, put in a bit of those type of signings, and then maybe get someone like Liam Miller, who's on loan at Preston from Basel, who apparently we've been linked with. If you get them too, then for me, that justifies my view on the model, because then you're then saying, well, okay, you're then replacing the goals and assists, in theory, anyway, that you're losing from Clark. But if it gets to a point where you get that money and we barely spend 5 million of it on players and the rest of it goes towards the rest of the club, then for me, that's not on. Because the money in off-the-pitch stuff should be coming from KLD's back pocket, in my opinion.
Yeah, especially if that 5-6 million they do spend on players is spread across 5 players in positions we don't actually need. You know, I still think that, I mean, everyone's banged on about a striker. That's all everyone's gone on about in the transfer window. I still firmly believe we needed some sort of experienced goalkeeper to be a backup to Patterson, or challenge him for his place at least.
See, for me, I've already got someone in mind in the summer who I'd be wanting to sign. If I'm right, I think he's a free transfer. Victor Johansson at Rotherham. I think apparently he's leaving. I think. Hold on, you might have to cover me for a moment because I'm lazy basically. But I'm going to try and double check that. But I think he is. Hang on, Victor Johansson's stats. Here we go. I'm just trying to see when because if I'm right, I think his contract runs out at the end of the season. But obviously, bear in mind, even if it doesn't, Rotherham get relegated, don't they? Really? So are they they're not going to be in a position to keep hold of him. Bear with me. Hold on. Oh my god.
Is this as a backup or as a direct replacement?
Competition.
I like it. Yeah, I like it.
Competition. That's what I think we need to be looking towards. I like Patterson. Don't get me wrong. Oh, typically I'm trying to look and it doesn't bloody say it. I like Patterson, but we need to obviously avoid. And I think in general he's done more good than bad for us. But you don't want to get to a point where he's complacent, do you?
No, and I think we kind of saw that a bit when he got his contract renewal. I think the game or two after that, he looked less hungry once he got his contract renewal. I don't know if you noticed that, but I think the complacency is there for him. I don't think he feels challenged for the spot at all.
Well, that's why I think, right, just to quickly answer, this is according to Transfer Market, by the way, who apparently are reasonably accurate. Victor Johansson's contract runs out in June 2025. So for me, how old is he? 25 years old, right? So I would wager a bet that Rotherham will need the money to fund a campaign in League One. So for me, Victor Johansson, I think if you put a minimal fee in as a backup keeper, I wouldn't be against that. Now, he's 25 years old. I know the model, the oldest we tend to sign players for money is like 24, but what's one extra year? Except for Sunderland, it's probably 10 years. But
it's different kettle of fish with goalkeepers, though, right? They have a lot more longevity as players anyway.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting rid of...
Yeah, 25 years old is like kind of a baby age or an adolescent age for a keeper, isn't it, really, in football?
Definitely.
So,
definitely.
For me, Victor Johansson, I just think is someone, I mean, I don't think we'll get him because I don't think we'll want to spend money on him, but I think that would be a mistake. I think you need to sign him in to keep Patterson's standards up. And then what happens down the line if, say, Pato then gets sold? Then you've got someone in there who can step in and replace him. That's the whole point of what we're trying to do, what we're supposed to be trying to do, which is succession planning. So, but with Patterson, yeah, I do get what you mean.
Yeah. So, I mean, my brief on the model would be basically, I am a fan of it because we have shown it works with some of the players that are developing. And if you get 3 or 4 young players and one turns out a superstar, that's still successful in my opinion. If it's more than one, bonus. My only issue is the whole, when we were looking for a manager / head coach, is it the model that's blocking things like, I know Will Still, there was money involved, but I think one of the issues for Will Still coming would have been he wanted to bring his own staff, and that didn't fit in with our model. He wanted control of the players he brought in. That didn't fit in with our model. Do you think with this model, we'll struggle to attract a good head coach?
For me, I don't think we should do, because I think head coaches should be able to look at A, the size of club we are, and B, the fact there actually are good players to work with here. And I think that should be an attraction for a lot of coaches. But at the same time, I believe the Will Still thing fell through because apparently there was a big compensation package. It was around 6 million, I've heard, but I don't know I don't know how true that is. But I mean, right, the backroom staff thing. For me, managers and head coaches in the past have worked with backroom staff already at the club. I know it was a different era, but Sam Allardyce, when he came in, I believe worked with the staff that were already at Sunderland. Now, I know Sunderland apparently, for Mike Dodds, for example, have a lot of faith in him as a coach. Now, I wonder, do they want Will Still, for example, enough to bend a little bit and be flexible, and then go, right, okay, we'll give you this, you come here and do this. And if there's and this is one thing I think that fans do have a right to point out, the flexibility of the model, I think, is something that could be bent a little bit more. And I think, and if anything, if you bend a little bit with this model and you stick in principle, in the core, stick to what we're doing, but in certain situations, you be a bit of flexibility, show a bit of leniency, how much better can the model be because of those flexible decisions, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, so, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So
I
think...
Go on.
Sorry. I was just saying, I think you do get that with some head coaches. You get like a loyalty thing. So I don't think it's a case of I need a complete overhaul of the backroom staff. But if I was coming in as manager, for example, like I've managed a couple of non-league teams, and when I've gone to the teams, I've always took my same assistant manager and my same head coach. You know, so they've kind of been with me.
Go with you, for example, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's what the case would be. If we attract a decent manager, he'll want nobody wants to be lumbered with Dodds as an assistant, I don't think. You know what I mean? So I don't think Beale even wanted it, to be fair. So I think, like you say, flexibility probably is the key there. But I mean, what's the contract on Beale? 30 months, I believe? Something like that.
It's basically until summer of 2026, I believe.
Yeah, that's just madness.
I will point out to counter that, though, and this might give you a bit of hope. How long did Mowbray have when we got rid of him?
I couldn't tell you, to be fair.
I am sure his contract originally was up till the end of this current season, but we activated an extra year's extension in it. So by the time he was sacked, he had 18 months, if I'm right, left. Now, what's 6 months? So Beale's only really got a longer contract by 6 extra months. So I wouldn't be surprised if we got Beale and gave him that contract just to placate him and keep him here for the moment, and we're going for Will Still again in the summer.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. You heard it here. You heard it here first.
I'm not saying we're going to get him. I just wouldn't be surprised. I think Beale will go in the summer anyway, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I've just got a feeling that and you've got to remember that from a financial perspective as well, which unfortunately we've got to think about these days. Season ticket sales are just round the corner, aren't they? How many season ticket sales are they going to drop by keeping Michael Beale? I reckon that might be the reason they get rid of him from a financial perspective.
Do you think the fans will do that, though? And you know what? We'll move on as part of this, because my next topic is kind of where do we go from here?
I've got a habit of doing this, of just unintentionally segueing into the next topic.
It's perfect. You're the perfect guest, I swear to God. But obviously you've mentioned the manager Will Still in the summer. You heard it here first. If it happens, whee.
But will. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, but. So where do we go from here with everything else? This is the thing. It's like we don't think there's going to be promotion. You don't think there's going to be playoff finals and all that lot this year. Some people are talking about a relegation battle. I don't think that's on the cards.
See, I joked about it yesterday on Twitter. I put out, how many points do you reckon we need to make sure we don't get grabbed into the scrap at the bottom?
I saw that. Actually,
Two more wins will do it. And that's how bad it got when you started. I was half joking, half being serious. But
I mean, is Beale out the path from here? What's the options here? Where can we go?
Well, if you're asking me what I would do, I would cut the losses with Beale now. I would say, look, we hope that you're going to we hope that your family life gets better, because that can't have been easy for him to do. And for me, that's not an excuse. That's just being a decent human being. I think we need to remember we can still be that, even if we're frustrated. But I think get rid of him, pay him off, and just go, right, there you go. Yeah, there's some money for Poppy's cancer treatment. I don't know. Like, just something that, have a bit of goodwill in that regard as a human being. And then maybe just give it to Dodds as I would go, give it Doddsy till the end of the season, basically. Why not? Yeah. We've got nothing to lose. If we're not going to, at this point with Beale, I bet I'd be very surprised if anyone still believes we will get into the top 6, like as in will get into it. So in that regard, if you get rid of Beale and have it with Dodds, what have we got to lose at this point? We've got nothing to lose. Just go at it for 14 games or 13 games, and then get Still again in the summer.
As much as I'm not a massive fan of Dodds, he changed the formation according to the teams we were playing. He showed some variation. He showed that he had the players on his side. He looks like he'd have more of the dressing room than Beale would.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
And
I'm with you on that one.
well. A bit of pragmatism as well.
Yeah. And the reason I moved on to this from what you were saying before is you were on about the season tickets. So, do you think the fans... I mean, we obviously make ourselves heard on social media platforms, on this, on Twitter, things like that. I mean, we're trending so many times with Beale Out over the last couple of months. I've lost count. But do you think the fans need to do something? I put a post out a while ago, a short, and people were saying, oh, we should protest outside the ground. We should all walk out on 73 minutes. Do you think something like this is needed if KLD's not going to do anything?
Good question. I'd say this season, it probably will not happen that way. I suppose another way to look at it is, and the club might argue this, 2 years ago, and some people won't like to hear this, and that's fine, as long as they're respectful about it to me, but 2 years ago, we were in League One. Now, I'm not saying that's the benchmark we should be judging, because where do Sunderland belong? Really, it's the Premier League. That's where I'm not saying we just, because for me, deserve to be there and belong there are two separate things. We don't deserve to be there at the minute, but as a natural level for an institution of our size, the Premier League is where we belong. That's where we're sustainable. That's where we should be sustainable. However, you can balance that by saying 2 years ago we were in League One and, we were basically cutting adrift at the top two, weren't we? We essentially went up by the playoffs, thanks to a bald man who I absolutely despise now. But the point never, I'd even take him over Michael Beale, by the way. That's how much I want Michael Beale gone. But anyway, that's how much, and I hate Alex Neil with a fibre, with a passion. But my argument is, I don't think it'll get to that point yet, because I think enough fans will still think, right, we're finishing the playoffs last year, which I think accelerated expectations, rightly so. But this season, I think it would take, if by next season, and I'm talking by midway point towards the back half of next season, if we're not at least in the top six or seriously challenging to get promoted, it might get to that point. Because I think the difference with the Championship and League One is that I think fans have enough patience with the Championship and at least can say, right, we expect to be getting promoted in a couple of years or a few years, but there's at least a bit of patience there. Whereas in League One, we pretty much every year we were there was a year wasted in our history, pretty much. So, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know, because I think enough people, and I myself, I'm included in this, I'm never going to stop going because I just can't not do it. I can never not do it. It's just, it's more than, I don't have much in my life apart from Sunderland, which I know is quite sad, really. But I mean, obviously, I do have a life outside of Sunderland, but Sunderland's like a big part of my life. I can never not go to the games. I can never not go to away games, even from a social aspect. That's the majority of my social life. So I can't not do it. But I think there will be fans who will be turned off, especially if Beale's still here. But also, I think it will get to a point where, if, like we said, when we start selling players, when we start bringing more money and assets into the club, if more money is still not being spent, then there are going to be questions. And for me, I think KLD has been, on Sunderland Till I Die, he came across quite well, but I think he's been bailed out by a lot of what Speakman and Harvey have done, and I still need to see more spend in terms of the infrastructure. As you guys have said it on Fan TV, Mad Mistakes said it plenty of times, and they're all bang on. The ticket office is a joke. The club shop's a joke, more or less.
Yeah.
The off-the-pitch institutional side of things has been in dire need of improvement for ages and still hasn't happened. And I know you don't expect it straight away, but I think by this point I'd have expected a bit of progress. So, yeah, no, it is I've waffled again, but it is a good question that in a year's time, could put it this way, within the next year, if things really don't look like we're going to try and get promoted to the Premier League, then I think it could get to potentially at that point. Mind if I ask you a question? Right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Say this season we finish 9th, right, as an example.
Mm-hmm.
If we finish 9th or so this season, we finish top half outside the playoffs. Even with Clark going, what would your expectations be going into next season? For me, it's top 6 at bare minimum.
It has to be, yeah. It has to be, because you can't do a double dip. We'd be starting thinking about bloody relegation battles if that was the case. My big fear, if that happens, is not just Clark going, because we kind of expect that. We're getting players in that are potential replacements. My fear is Clark going, Patterson going, Neil going, Ekwa going. I know some people will be glad to see the back of Ekwa, but I quite rate him. He just needs to be played in the right position. But that list is massive because lots of our players have potential, and lots of them we saw in January have interest from Premier League clubs. So it's not a case of losing one player. If we lost 5 or 6 of our best players, I mean, without some heavy investment, we're going to start going on a downward spiral.
In that scenario, yes, I'd be very worried. But let me ask you a counter question. Can you see us selling all of our assets in one window? Every single one of them?
Not necessarily. Not by our choice. But if you've got Premier League clubs hounding for players, offering the money, keeping them players against their will can be more detrimental.
It can, but I'll give you an example. The 2 players where I think we are at most risk of losing is Clark and Ballard. I think Clark and Ballard are the 2 that I know some people say Dan Neil, and I still can't believe there's some fans out there who don't rate him, but that's their opinion, which is fair enough. But Dan Neil, for me, and maybe this is a bit of a sentiment, I think him being a Sunderland fan keeps him at the club a year longer. I really do.
Henderson was a Sunderland fan.
He was, but the difference is then we needed the money, didn't we? Whereas, I know we kind of do now, but my point is, back then, which other asset did we sell that particular window? We didn't, if under Steve Bruce, we didn't really sell anyone, did we? Anyone?
No one big, no.
No. So my point is, I can't see Sunderland, we shouldn't see Sunderland selling Clark, Ballard, Neil, Ekwa, Joe, Patterson, whoever it is, all in one window. I think for me, we keep Pato. I think we keep Ekwa. I think we keep Hume. I can see us keeping Neil. So I think if you kept, I think you could lose up to 2 at most, but you can't lose any more than that because, and when I say that, you can lose up to 2 at most, but you have to keep everybody else and directly reinvest a lot of the money that's brought in back into the squad to do that.
I mean, with that scenario, to answer your question, my expectation, to be honest, would be the same as it was this season. And I'm the eternal optimist. You know, I'm always predicting the 3-1 win like Philly. But
you need to shake your hand Philly.
I think with the size of the club, like you say, we belong in the Premier League. Might not deserve it right now, but we belong. The size of the club, the players that we've got, the players we've found, the fact that all these Premier League teams are hounding after them, exactly. We should be challenging for top 2. Playoffs is not an ambition for me. Playoffs is second prize, is it at least. But I think next season we should be challenging for top 2, and that should be a reason enough to invest in whatever compensation is required to get a good head coach through that door.
Yeah. Now, see, another thing is there, because we have to look at financial fair play. And I know there are some people out there that believe financial fair play is an excuse to not spend money, which to me is nonsense. Unfortunately, financial fair play is a thing. Well, kind of fortunately, kind of unfortunately, it is a thing. But where it comes from is, I believe paying for a head coach doesn't count towards it. I might be wrong, but I don't think it does. Now, in that sense, that's where I question KLD. I'll tell you, just to make it relevant. When Mowbray was sacked, the person I wanted was Kieran McKenna at Ipswich. That was who I wanted us to go for. Now, I understand Ipswich were top 2 at the time. Put it this way, I still don't see Ipswich getting promoted this season. With that in mind, next season, both Ipswich, if I'm right, Ipswich and Sunderland, unless we somehow go down to League One, please no. But
don't say
I know. The fact I'm saying that is really depressing. But if we're both in the Championship next season, let's be real. Ipswich to Sunderland is a step up in club size. It is. You can't convince me that Ipswich are a bigger draw than Sunderland. Now, they are a big draw at Championship level, but they're not they shouldn't be the level that we are, even with the structure we've got in place. If you want to look at the fact of the structure we got in place, Alex Pritchard, Jack Clark, Patrick Roberts, Corey Evans, Danny Barr, we got all of them in League One. Yeah. Why do you think that is?
Exactly. Yeah.
So my point is, but with that in mind, next season, if, say, for example, in this scenario, you sell Clark and Ballard, but you keep everybody else. Clark, for me, you get a minimum, say, 25 million, just as a random hypothetical figure. Ballard, for me, about 15 million, I think, would be a fair price in this day and age. Bear in mind, Ballard's under contract till June 2027, I think. So he's got another 3 years left on his deal after this season. So if you get, say, 40 million combined for the pair of them, and say 10 million of that goes towards sell-on clauses for Tottenham and Arsenal, respectively. You then get theoretically, I know I'm plucking figures out my arse here, but I'm doing it to make a point. You then get £30 million coming in. So not even just the size of club we are, the level of, even if it's younger players, the quality that we can attract. With that money coming in on top of it, you should then at minimum be finishing top 6 next season. and even more so if you have a competent head coach at the helm. Because even if you look at the teams that are Leicester, Leeds, and Southampton were the 3 relegated clubs, I think 2 of them at least are getting promoted, or possibly all 3 of them. But I think 2 of them are definitely going to get promoted. Leicester will win the league for me, and then I think it's between Leeds and Southampton realistically across the season to get that second spot. So if say, for example, at least 2 of the relegated sides go up, maybe all 3 of them, bear in mind the relegated side who doesn't go up can lose more players in the summer.
Yeah.
So next season, for example, Burnley and Sheffield United look like they're going to come down unless they have a really great end of the season. Are either of them going to be better than the relegated sides this season? I personally don't think they will be.
No.
I think if you look at Burnley as an example, yes, okay, Burnley have got some decent players and good players at championship level, but Nathan Teller was there last season, and he's at Bayer Leverkusen now. Harwood Bellis was there. He's now at Southampton. So they're already weaker for me than what they were going into last season even.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, they'll have players that should be at the top. Sheffield United, I'm not particularly concerned about, if I'm honest. They've got Cameron Archer, I think, is really good, and they've got some good. Obviously, they will have some good championship level players. But for me, I don't see them as. I think we can compete against them better than we realistically were going to against Leicester, Leeds, and Southampton. And to me, that's not ambition. That to me is being realistic. Like even when people were saying top 2 this season, I never once thought it was ever going to happen, ever, because unfortunately, just because of how good those sides are. So next season, if the relegated sides aren't as good, which I don't think they will be, even if people say Everton and Forest, right? If Forest come down, I think that's a different story. They've got really, really good players who will sell some of them. Everton, for me, is a funny one because while I don't want, as a club, I don't want Everton to go down, mainly because they annoy the Mags, which is really hilarious. But Everton are a massive club themselves. If Everton come down, financially, they're not in a good position, are they? So financially, that means they're going from getting that amount of money to the Premier League, the revenue drops considerably, and they're going to have to make that up by selling assets. So, you know what I mean? So I just think next season, providing we reinvest the money we get for the likes of Clark and potentially another asset, because that's the condition. If you do that, then for me, if you do not finish top 6 next season, especially with a competent coach, that's a massive, massive failure. You'd argue it's a failure this season to not finish in the playoffs, but it's especially a failure next season if we don't. And you're right. I think with all that being said, if, say, we bring in big amount of money for assets, I think then, aside from the clubs that have got parachute payments, we should have one of the biggest budgets in the Championship next season. And then the pressure then gets bigger, doesn't it?
Yeah, because you talk about the financial fair play, but I mean, I've done a video on this channel before about the numbers, and the numbers just don't add up sometimes for me. We're highest attendance in the Championship, average across every single game, and yet we're only the 4th on wages, 4th from bottom on wages. We spend nothing. I don't think we're even close to that financial fair play rule.
No, we're not. Well, I would argue because, to an extent, I view that as a positive in the fact that we are where we are on the 4th lowest wage spend. But the caveat to that is it's frustrating at the same time because you've done that with the 4th lowest wage spend. Now, what could you do if you spent more?
Yeah.
We prove we can spot good players. So for me, if you then spend more, theoretically, you can get better players. I trust this lot much more than I trusted bloody Stuart Donald or Ellis Short. You know. So
it makes you wonder.
Yeah, I think for fans, that's probably where a lot of the frustration comes from.
It makes you wonder because the players they've brought in that have been really good, how many have slipped by that we don't even know about because of money?
That's the problem. Yeah. So that for me, it just becomes into that, doesn't it? Because that for me, where the big pressure for me and the big judgment comes when we get the money for the assets, and if we don't reinvest enough of that money, then I will be joining the criticism like everybody else because that then means you're not willing to push the boat out a bit more. And again, but even if you want to look at the financial fair play, like Hull is another example of a club that people felt went for it. Apparently, I saw some numbers that suggested, and I think it was from Kieran Maguire, I think his name is. He's a good football finance expert. Apparently, and I could be wrong here, but I think Hull are losing £400,000 a week. Now, with that in mind, Philogene, for example, who's one of their bigger assets, and I was talking to a journalist about this, and they were saying that Hull, for example, when they make a sale, they have to use that towards balancing the books, unless the owner's going to write off a lot of the debt or a lot of like money that they're losing. And can they do that with FFP? Now the problem is, and also another thing, Hull are relying a lot on loan deals this season. Now what happens in the summer? They don't go up.
Yeah,
they all go. You know, Ipswich is another example where Ipswich I think are doing superbly well, but I wouldn't exactly say their squad's better than ours. And I think a large reason why they're there, and they deserve to be where they are, by the way, but I think a large part of that is Kieran McKenna. Now, I can't see Kieran McKenna not getting Premier League interest in the summer if Ipswich don't get promoted. I think that's... So if, let's say Kieran McKenna goes from Ipswich and Hull lose a couple of assets in the loan deals and have to sell a couple of players to balance the books, then all of a sudden you're looking, hang on, if Sunderland then reinvest, and this is the if, isn't it, though? If Sunderland reinvest the money we get from the assets going back into the first team, then, we should be, then top 6 at minimum should be the almost guaranteed as much as you can be. Another club as an example, Norwich, like Gabriel Sarah and Johnny Rowe, they're in debt as well. So if they don't go up, what happens to those players?
Yeah. So, when I discussed the finances on the channel, I had people in the comments saying about like the Alvarez deal and previous debts and stuff like that, and all the money's going on these debts, blah blah blah. But then they did the Red and White Army did that meeting with KLD, and I think one of the things that came out of that was basically that the debts weren't regular debts; they weren't like interest debts; they were just owed to the shareholders. And he's working out a deal to give it back in equity. So we're not actually paying off a debt weekly.
That's the thing. So
I think your excuses run out next season, like you say. If we get that money in and nothing happens, so there's a leak in the bucket.
Then the criticism is 100% justified, and I will be joining in with it because I don't mind the fact because people go, well, just spend money, or it doesn't matter what happens in the future, just spend it. I think fans unfortunately need to get out of that mindset without having investment coming into the club in terms of sales. But once that, like you said yourself, that's a perfect way of putting it. Once the sales start coming in and you get the money, yes, it might be amortized in installments, but you're still getting the money in there. Mm-hmm. Once that comes in, you do not start spending serious money, then I'm with you. Then the excuses are gone. Then the fact of the matter is then you then should start to look at, because again, if we get Clark and Ballard sold, and you get 30-odd million or so combined for the pair of them once sell-on clauses are paid for. Right, in that scenario, right? So, again, Clark, Ballard go, and you get 40 million for the two of them. Say 10 million goes towards paying sell-on clauses. You get 30 million. How much of that at a minimum should be spent on the first-team playing squad for you?
For me, at minimum 60%.
I would say
at minimum.
I would say at minimum, say out of 30 million, hypothetically, at minimum, around the 20 million pound mark should be spent on the first team squad. And think what you could do then, because that money should get you at least 3, in my opinion, 3 exceptionally good championship level players with the right recruitment who are, say they're 21, 22, they're at championship top 6 level now, but in a couple of years, they'll be mid-table Premier League level. That's the sort. If we do it that way, then I think I'm justified in what I'm saying. But if we don't do that and we penny pinch and then we try to, sign players for 500,000 or sign players for at most 2 or 3 million ahead, then I'll be like, well, come on, what's happening with what's happening with bringing in?
If we lose them two and we see a summer where it's 6 loan signings, then no permanent signings. It's just like.
Yeah, then it's not good enough, is it?
No, definitely not.
Here's one I asked you, right? Because I asked this for a joke on Twitter. I said for a joke, because Southampton apparently were interested in Jack Clark. And I said for a joke, £25 million, but we get Ross Stewart on loan next season. Imagine if that happened. Interesting,
because would he stay uninjured for the season?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Yeah, that is the problem. Well, all right then. So let's say, like I said, some of the players I'd be looking at next season: Liam Miller from Preston, who's on loan at Preston from Basel. For me, Tom Cannon from Leicester, who's proved he can score goals at this level. Jay Stansfield, again, they fit the age bracket with what we're recruiting, but they are proving that they are good enough for this level. They are proving they are good enough to more than contribute. If we got players like that in with the Clark money, for example, what would you say to that?
I'd be happy with that because it's not. We're not buying this 28-year-old experienced striker, but we're getting people that are proven at the level, and that's what matters. Yeah, it's no good. It's no good signing us. I know people keep going, "Oh yeah, but what about this?" And like Ross Stewart, to me, that was a fluke. How well he did compared when we first signed him, you're looking at him on paper thinking, but it's Scottish League, you know, and you get the players like that. You can't rely on a fluke. That's the thing. Fair play to the recruitment team. They do get it right quite often, but we do need to.
But at some point, you need to spend, don't you? At some
Definitely.
point, you do need.
If you lose that quality, yes.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about strikers, they're the premium, aren't they? Because they are the ones that cost the best amounts of money. Look, even someone like Kiefer Moore, who I'm personally, because I don't think Ipswich get promoted, I think then not paying 30 grand a week might serve us better in the future. But because I've heard Ipswich are paying 30 grand a week towards his wages for a loan deal. But obviously, here's what it is for me. Like, again, if you sold Clark and you sign players like either Tom Cannon or Jay Stansfield, proven doesn't necessarily have to mean 27, 28-year-old. It could be 22, 23-year-old who's had a few years in the Championship now. It could. Yeah. Proven can still be within the age parameters of the model, but players who are more proven at this level, right, the age. And Tom Cannon and Jay Stansfield are exactly that.
On a personal level, for me, Sunderland always have to invest in them wingers. Look at what we've got at the moment now with Roberts and Clark. And to be honest, in my opinion, he's got some development to do, but he's got a lot of potential. Look what we've had there in the past. Michael Gray, Kieran Richardson. Yeah. We've had, it's always been great players. Even when the rest of the team's on a shoestring budget, we've had some great players there. So
here's one, right? So you talked about wingers very quickly, sorry. I know you keep probably needing to finish, but imagine Clark goes for like a big amount of money and we sign Ahmad back. I know that won't happen, by the way, but it was worth a try.
Yeah, the only way we'd sign him back is if he finally realises we can have him on loan. There's no way we'd afford his full fee, I don't think. We'd have to sign.
The only way that would happen is we went up.
Yeah, we'd have to sell 3 Jack Clarks to afford him off United, I think. Yeah. Right, so we clearly, every man and his dog, every person in red and white knows how to fix this club except for the club. So we will wait with bated breath. And do you know what? A year today, we'll have another one of these, and we'll see how far it's come.
And then we'll get to a point where everybody where everybody needs to go, probably.
Yeah. Right. Very quickly, this one, because we don't need to do a full review. We've got Swansea coming up. And the only reason I wanted to touch on this is because it's a home game. We've not had too bad a form at home, but we've beat Swansea twice since 1979. 1964, is the last time. Before then, 2 times. So literally every other game's been losses and draws, and we've not beat them since 2016. But I say Welsh teams are bogey teams for us, but I got dismissed when I said that before. What do you think our chances are at Swansea?
Well, put it this way. Since we've come back up the Championship, we lost 3 out of the 4 games to Welsh teams last year in Cardiff and Swansea, and we lost at home to Cardiff this season and drew away to 10-man Swansea. So, I don't think there probably is something in that. Maybe we just don't. Maybe we should just avoid playing Welsh teams. Swansea and Cardiff, can you both just go down already so we don't have to keep dropping points against you? At home, it's funny how the form's different to last year. At home, we're actually not too bad. We're not actually, to be fair, we aren't too shabby. So I'll go 2-1 to Sunderland if you're asking for a score prediction. There you go. There's one for you. I do think we'll win, but it's just because we are at home. And at home, I think, well, providing we start all right, I think obviously you'll have the crowd behind you and so on. And look, while I don't think we get top 6, mathematically there is still a chance of it. So, if you really, if I will say this, if the club really wants to try and push for the top 6 and the players do, they're approaching last chance saloon for it, really, for me. So, just win the game and get to 50 points, and I think we're not going to go down.
I think we'll know if we're going to win or not an hour before when they release the team sheet.
Yeah, can I just point out, I don't like slating players and saying not good enough, but if Burstow is in ahead of Rooson, I will literally flip me lid.
If Job is ahead of anyone.
Well, all right then. So, what team would you put in there? Bear in mind, Roberts is out for a few weeks now.
Well, to be honest, I put a team up not so long ago on just on a shot. No, was it a short? It was a short. I think it was a short. I'm going to just pull it up now on my screen so I can read it to you. No, I'm not. I've no idea where it is. Anyway, basically, it's difficult now because it's changed, isn't it? Because is it Ballard on a suspension?
Yes. No, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, Ballard's out for 2 games, isn't he?
Yeah. So it's a bit it's a bit different because without Ballard's suspension, so my team, what should have been played Saturday for me, was having Ballard, so Hume, Ballard, Sealt, and Yelder across the back four.
Yeah.
In front of them, Dan Neil and Luke O'Nien as the 2 defensive midfielders. Then you've got on the left Clark, on the right Mundle, in the centre Ekwar, and then Rusin up front.
Interesting.
So that was my team. It'd be very similar to that, I think. I think we need to release O'Nien into a midfield position. I'm not sure we can do that with Ballard out, but that's what I'd want to see.
What I would probably go with, well, obviously the usual suspects of Pato in goal. It's probably going to be Hume, O'Nien, Sealt, and Yelder. That's what I think it'll be. I think Neil and Ekwar will still be the midfield 2 again. Again, I like Ekwar, but I think, like with Job, I think he could do with a bit of a breather, but that's the fault of the club for not signing a midfielder. Unless, well, no, he's not going to be fit. Unless Corey Evans is magically match fit all of a sudden, but I doubt he will be. Neil and Ekwar then, but then this is the tricky bit. I would, you know what? Screw it. I would probably go with Clark, Barr, Mundle, and then Rusin. Because I think Job, it's not just the fact he came on against Plymouth and scored. I think once he gets a bit of a breather over the next couple of games, and I mean, like, keep him out of the starting 11 for the next 2, 3, even up to the March international break, right? He'll be a better player for it down the line. We saw what happened with Dan Neil when he got taken out of the team, and now look where he is. So, you know, that's where, for me, I think Job needs a bit of that.
I noticed we both went for a single striker. Have we played this formation for so long that even we're used to a single striker? Because I personally don't think Rusin is that striker. I don't think any of the current ones are a solo striker. We saw for 5 minutes at the end of the last game Hamir come on, and we had 2 with Rusin and Hamir. They didn't get a chance to show us anything. It was too little, too late. But I'd love to see 2 up front.
So if you're going to do 2 up front, then what system would you use then?
Mike Bassett, all the way.
4-4 effing 2.
Yeah, that's the one.
4-4 effing 2.
I would do, well, no, not necessarily. So I would be looking at 5-3-2 with your left back and right back pushing up
in the width,
on the wings.
Yeah.
But it's difficult. That's a difficult one to do. It would more than likely be 4-4-2 with the players we have available. Because you've got to think, where do you fit Clark in? Where do you fit Mundle or Barr in and stuff like that? So it'd probably end up being 4-4-2, the only way you could get 2 strikers on.
That's the problem, because once you then go in 3-5-2 or 5-3-2, you then having to factor in 3 centre-halves, but then it changes the midfield, it changes the width, and then all of a sudden you're having to factor, because Clark, as much as obviously he's one of the best players in this division, is he a wing-back? No. I don't think he's... I don't personally feel Clark is a wing-back, or at least not consistently enough.
Was it Leeds we did that against?
Yeah, see, this is what comes back to Mike Dodds before, because he showed that against West Brom and Leeds that he's got the tactical nous to be able to change things up when necessary. Yeah, you're right. I'm pretty sure we did that against Leeds. And tactically and positionally, that was our best performance of the season for me.
Yeah.
Leeds at home. I mean, obviously Southampton at home was the highlight, but like Leeds at home was an example of what is capable with this system. And yeah, I mean, I suppose if you're doing wing backs, who'd you put? Clark and Hume, probably. Do you then put Yelder, O'Nien, and Ballard when Ballard's out from his suspension as the 3 centre backs, or O'Nien, Ballard, and Sealt? Or
Yelder and Sealt can both play centre back. So you've got Yelder, Sealt, and O'Nien, or you've got Yelder, Sealt, and Ballard if you're freeing up O'Nien from midfield. And I think we've got an abundance, and we're not even talking about Elise. I mean, he can't be far off fitness.
Oh, well, and another player we forget about, even though he's probably not fit, Sirkin. There's another one who, Sirkin I'm a big fan of, but again, he can't stay, like with Lisa, I mean, they can't stay fit.
Oh, yeah, didn't he start to look really amazing as well, as he was coming through before he went out again?
Sirkin, well, you remember like the end of last season, he was really excelling, and then he's all of a sudden injured again. Yay.
Well, so you've gone for 2-1. I am going to be this is the person that always says 3-1. I'm going to say it's going to be a 1-1 draw purely because it's one of our Welsh bogey teams. But I hope I'm vastly wrong, and I hope, you never know, we might have Dodds in charge by that point.
Well, let me put it this way, right? Last season, we lost the first 3 games between Cardiff and Swansea, and we won the 4th one. So hopefully that's the case. Oh, hang on, no, this is the 3rd. Oh, never mind, we're not winning, are we? Never mind. No, I think because it's at home, I think we should have enough to win this game. I think at home, I fancy us against most teams, but it's just away form's nowhere near consistent enough if you want to be near the top 6. So I'm just saying 2-1 just because I need to see us win. I need to see us win again. Just have a good Saturday for once.
I want to do commentary on a winning game.
Hang on, have you not commentated on a win yet?
I know I have. I've done
just
the last
not many,
3 games.
like 1 out of 10.
I've done the last 3 games consistently. I have done other ones in between, but the last 3 games I've done consistently. But it's so difficult when the team's flat and you're losing to keep enthusiasm when you've got 100 people watching.
It would have been much more exciting when we had Mowbray, wouldn't it? When we were playing best under him and we're creating chances. So
well, there is a feature in my commentary called Beale Watch, and when it goes to Beale, we're like, his hands are out of his pockets. Oh no! So we find fillers, right?
Yeah, you've got fair play to you though. Doing a commentary and talking for that long is very difficult when you're on your own.
Yeah, definitely. But the missus has ADHD. I'm thinking of dragging her in for the commentary. She wouldn't stop talking. It might not be about Sunderland, but she'll still talk.
Well, I mean, to be fair, didn't Philly get Kazza into the live streams before? And she's obviously not really into football, so you never know. Can work.
Yeah, there you go. Could work. I'll pitch it. Right. Lastly, I just want to put up please tell me it's right. Your channel.
Yes, that's correct.
That's correct. So, for the last thing, can you just tell me, as somebody who might not have, if I've never been on your channel before, what's your channel?
My channel is literally just Michael Bowers. Obviously, the name is just down there. Just type Michael Bowers or even Michael Bowers Sunderland, and you'll find me on there with loads of like weird facial expressions as thumbnails, and then you just have me just sort of talking about how good or how shite we are at the moment. So, you know, I think I recently got past. Actually, I'll be able to tell you in a moment. I think we got past 5,100 subscribers, which takes a while to get there. Bloody hell! But no, we got two. Yeah, no, you'll get there. You'll get there. Yeah, I think. So yeah, it would be if you're not subscribed and you want to hit a sub button, then that would mean a lot to us. But no, that's pretty much where I am. I've just pretty much just do videos after the game where I talk for less than 5 minutes and just give my general sort of assessment, if you like.
Excellent. Make sure you go and check out Michael's channel. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
And sub to this one as well.
Yeah, thank you. That goes without saying. You shouldn't be.
Yeah.
If you've been here for 58 minutes and you've not subbed, that's a problem with you, not a problem with us.
Love
If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget you can also give us a rating on that. It really helps. So yeah, finally, would you like to say goodbye to the listeners and watchers, Michael?
Thank you very much. It's been good, and fingers crossed this goes well for you.
And thank you for me. Much appreciated, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode.